Stocks tied to psychedelic therapeutics jumping today in a big way after President Donald Trump's executive order aimed at faster research and access to once taboo treatments. The new order directs the FDA to lean on a so-called breakthrough designation to cut down their review times to 1 to 2 months. Previously, that was 6 to 10 months. I'm pleased to say that we're joined live now by FDA Commissioner Marty Makary. Great to have you with us. And I do want to talk about, why this research, why prioritize it now? Because, some of the issues that we're talking about, these are things that have been discussed for years. So bring us to this moment.
Well, this is a historic moment in American medicine. $50 million is going to be allocated to this type of research. We've seen some preliminary data that is promising. That is remission rates of 30 to 40% for PTSD conditions where there's otherwise no good treatment. We've also heard dramatic stories of veterans having a profound benefit. And those individual stories are a form of data, too. That is scientific data. We just need to see all of it together and assure safety and efficacy. The applications around these products are now getting to the point where they're mature enough where the applications are about to arrive here at the FDA. So we are issuing 3 national priority vouchers to get a decision out in 1 to 2 months instead of the typical year, in addition to the research funding, and a new pathway so that it will not be considered a controlled substance at the time of administration in a controlled medical setting. I think this has been an issue where for a long time there's been some good preliminary data. We now have to take a hard look at that data, and for those suffering with PTSD and other debilitating addictions, we owe it to them to get those decisions out quickly.
And so there's a lot of focus here on ibogaine, which is, I understand it is a psychedelic compound that's extracted from an African plant. And when it comes to, the FDA, that new guidance that you were directed to give to researchers to study ibogaine, do you expect that the U.S. is going to reclassify ibogaine and other psychedelic-controlled substances to make it easier to study them? And if so, is there any sort of timeline you can give us?
Well, not only do we allocate funding to study drugs like ibogaine, but also created a pathway so that normally when there's an FDA approval, there's a temporary rescheduling to enable clinicians to use it. That we have that with fentanyl and a number of drugs that are used in the operating room in America every day. So that is our normal process. We want it to be expeditious. We don't want red tape to slow this down. And that's because the stories that we're hearing are pretty amazing stories. Now, we need to do the proper phase 3 clinical trials, because if we recommend these treatments as a physician community to patients, they want to know what the numbers are. There are side effects. People have died from these medications. But on Saturday with President Trump, I did announce the first ever clearance of an investigational new drug registration for noribogaine, a form of ibogaine, for first in human trials. That'll pave the way for the proper clinical studies to be done.
I am curious about some of the studies that have already been done on some of these compounds. Of course, there was a lot of controversy a few years ago when the FDA rejected, I think it was an application for basically MDMA, or what we would call MDMA. And the idea there was that despite whatever evidence the trials showed about the benefit, there was some concern about safety. What's changed since that rejection in 2024 and where we are today?
Well, that company has gone back and done an audit. If that company submits the results of their audit for the protocol violation that was cited in the rejection about 2 years ago, before I was leading the FDA, then that'll be considered and in due process. But there are side effects that require that there are conditions that are strictly followed to administer these medications. For example, patients can become highly amorous. There needs to be close supervision, not just in a one-on-one setting. And we want to make sure that there's adequate time to monitor patients if they have cardiovascular complications, which have been well described with substances like ibogaine. Now, ibogaine is the least mature of all the studies that are done in the United States. We have applications that are coming for other psychedelics, and they should be arriving this summer. Some of those will get the priority voucher approval. But given the degree of urgency around this problem, remember, 89% of vets with PTSD are just getting antidepressants with SSRIs.
Right.
It is very low effectiveness. It's not working well. We can do better. So we owe it to them to get decisions out quickly.
All right, Marty, before we let you go, I do have to just ask you about some of the other things going on at the FDA, particularly with regards to the recent departure here of the head of the vaccine program. Are you any closer to finding a replacement for him?
Yeah, well, the vaccine program lives within our Center for Biologics. The head of the Center for Biologics was on a sabbatical leave of absence from a university. He said at the end of the month he will be going back to the university. We have a lot of people who are interested in that job, a very robust search, and I expect an announcement soon. There are some outstanding candidates. A lot of people want to work at the FDA. We're hiring about 3,000 scientists and inspectors at the FDA, so we are growing, and it's a great time to be working at the FDA.